Hello there, my sleepy fellows. On some nights at Hogwarts, the castle feels especially patient. These are the nights when the staircases move more slowly, when lanterns glow just a little warmer, and when the echoes in the corridors seem to soften, as if the stone itself has decided to speak in whispers instead of footsteps. It is on one such night that this story begins, a night meant not for excitement or urgency, but for quiet magic, gentle understanding, and the small mysteries that only reveal themselves when everything else has grown still. This is a story about a quill, not a grand artifact locked away in a vault, and not a dangerous object whispered about in warning. It is a simple-looking quill, the kind students use every day, resting unnoticed on a wooden desk. And yet, on this particular evening, it carries a secret of its own, a secret tied to patience, reflection, and the way Hogwarts sometimes chooses to teach lessons without announcing them. The castle is settling into night. Torches along the corridors burn steadily, their flames barely flickering. The great hall has emptied, leaving behind the faint scent of warm bread and candle wax. Outside, the grounds lie quiet beneath a calm, star-dusted sky. The black lake reflects the moon like polished glass, and the wind moves gently through the trees, careful not to disturb the peace. Somewhere deep within the castle, a classroom remains softly lit. Rows of desks stand in calm order, parchment stacked neatly, ink bottles capped and waiting. The air smells faintly of old books and polished wood. There is no rush here, no one hurrying to finish an assignment, just the quiet promise that learning at Hogwarts does not always end when the day does. As you settle into this story, imagine yourself walking slowly through these halls, your footsteps light, your breath unhurried. Imagine the comfort of knowing that nothing is expected of you tonight. No answers, no effort, no explanations. This is a journey meant to unfold gently, like turning pages at your own pace, with time stretching kindly around you. If you enjoy calm, magical tales like this one, stories that help you relax, unwind, and drift gently toward sleep, you might choose to like this story, subscribe, or explore more quiet journeys through the wizarding world. There is no hurry. Even that choice can wait. For now, let the castle hold you. Let the lantern light soften your thoughts. Let the quiet wrap around you like a familiar cloak. Somewhere nearby, a quill rests on a desk, waiting for the night to do what it does best. And when it does, the lesson it offers will be a gentle one, written not in punishment, but in understanding. The magical school night has only just begun. The classroom belongs to Professor Minerva McGonagall, though at this late hour it feels less like a place of discipline and more like a quiet refuge. The tall windows are dark now, curtains drawn halfway, and the long wooden desks rest in orderly rows beneath the steady glow of a single lantern. The room is waiting, not for instruction, but for presence. At one of the desks sits Harry Potter, shoulders relaxed, his posture unhurried. Detention has never truly frightened him, but tonight it feels different. There is no tension in the air, no sense of reprimand. Instead, the silence feels thoughtful, as though the room itself has decided this hour is meant for reflection rather than correction. Harry traces a finger lightly along the edge of the desk, feeling the familiar grooves worn smooth by generations of students. Across from him, Hermione Granger sits with her parchment neatly arranged, ink bottle carefully positioned. Even in detention, there is comfort in order for her. Yet, her expression is softer than usual, less focused on rules, more curious about the unusual calm settling over the classroom. She glances at Harry, then back to the empty chalkboard, as though expecting it to speak. "This doesn't feel like detention," she murmurs quietly. Harry smiles faintly. "No, it feels like waiting." Nearby, leaning back in his chair, with arms folded loosely, Ron Weasley shifts his weight and exhales. He had complained earlier, of course. Detention always earns a grumble, but now even he seems content to be here. The quiet has worked its way into him, smoothing out the day's leftover noise. "Reckon McGonagall forgot about us," Ron whispers, not unkindly. Hermione shakes her head gently. She doesn't forget. And she is right. Professor McGonagall is present, though not at the desk. She stands near the tall bookcase at the back of the room, reviewing a thin volume with calm precision. Her expression is not stern tonight. It is thoughtful, observant. She has chosen this moment carefully, this particular detention, this particular night. She glances toward the students, her gaze sharp but not unkind. "You may write," she says softly, closing the book. "Use the time well." With that, she returns to her reading, allowing the room to settle again. Harry picks up a quill from the desk, a simple one, pale feathered, its nib clean and waiting. Hermione does the same, and Ron, after a moment's hesitation, follows. The scratch of quill against parchment begins slowly, unevenly, then finds a steady rhythm. Each of them brings something different to the page. Harry writes without hurry, thoughts flowing in loose lines. Hermione writes with care, precise and neat. Ron pauses often, staring at the parchment, as if listening for the right words to arrive. They are not just writing lines, they are sitting together in a rare pause, three friends, guided not by rules or urgency, but by a quiet moment Hogwarts has chosen to offer them. The classroom holds them gently, lantern light warm above, the night pressing softly against the windows. And at Harry's desk, unnoticed and unremarkable, the quill waits. It has been used many times before, but tonight it is listening, and soon it will begin to write in its own way. The classroom settles into a rhythm so gentle it almost feels like breathing. Quills move slowly across parchment, each scratch of ink soft and unhurried. The lantern above hums faintly, its glow steady and warm, casting long shadows that stretch lazily across the wooden floor. Outside the tall windows, the night remains still, as though Hogwarts itself has paused to listen. Harry writes without counting his lines. At first, the words are ordinary, simple reflections, quiet acknowledgments of rules bent and lessons learned. The kind of writing expected in detention. His hand moves easily, the quill gliding across the page with surprising smoothness. There is no rush to finish, no tension in his shoulders. The calm in the room seems to guide his thoughts as much as the quill guides his hand. Beside him, Hermione pauses mid-sentence. She lifts her quill slightly, examining the ink at its tip. It gleams a shade darker than usual, not alarming, just richer. She dips it gently into the ink bottle again, though it hardly seems necessary. "Harry," she whispers, careful not to disturb the room, "does your ink look different?" Harry glances down at his parchment. At first, everything appears normal, neat lines, steady handwriting, but as he looks closer, he notices something subtle. The words he wrote earlier seem softer now, as though the ink has settled more deeply into the parchment, not fading, resting. "It's probably just the light," Ron mutters from across the desk. Though his voice lacks conviction, he stares at his own parchment, brow furrowed, except, "I didn't write that last line." Harry leans over slightly. Ron's parchment holds a sentence he doesn't remember forming, not perfectly spelled, not particularly elegant, but unmistakably his. "I don't like being told I'm bad at things I haven't finished learning yet." Ron blinks at it, then scratches his head. "I was thinking it," he says quietly, "but I don't remember writing it." Hermione's attention sharpens, though her tone remains gentle. She checks her own parchment. Between two carefully written lines, a new sentence has appeared, smaller, neater, almost tucked into the space, as though it has always belonged there. Understanding takes longer than rules. Her breath catches softly. The quills are still. Harry looks down again at his page. Beneath his last line, written in handwriting that looks exactly like his own, but feels somehow calmer, rests a sentence he does not remember forming. "Some lessons don't need repeating to be learned. The classroom does not react. There is no flash of light, no sound of magic stirring." Professor McGonagall remains at the back of the room, turning a page in her book, seemingly unaware of anything unusual. The lantern does not flicker, the castle does not shift, and yet something has changed. Harry lifts his quill slightly. It feels warm, not hot, not alive, just gently warmed, as though it has been resting in lamplight for a long while. When he lowers it again, it moves on its own, not racing ahead, not resisting, but guiding. The quill writes slowly, deliberately, not lines of punishment, but lines of reflection. Hermione watches, fascinated, as her own quill resumes movement without her prompting. The words that appear are not unfamiliar thoughts. They are thoughts she has carried quietly, rarely allowing herself to pause long enough to acknowledge them. Ron's quill moves too, hesitant at first, then steadier, as if reassured. None of them feel alarmed. That is the strangest part. The magic unfolding here does not demand attention. It does not thrill or frighten. It feels considerate, like someone finishing a thought you began but never quite completed. Harry glances toward Professor McGonagall. She remains focused on her book, but there is something in her posture, an ease, a knowing stillness that suggests she is not surprised. Perhaps she has seen this before, or perhaps Hogwarts has chosen this moment without consulting anyone at all. The quill continues its gentle work. Harry reads what appears on his page as it forms. Detention is not always about correction. Sometimes It is about pause. The words settle into the parchment and stop. Hermione's quill writes a single line and lifts itself politely, as though finished for now. Kindness to oneself is a discipline rarely taught. Ron's quill scratches out one last sentence, slightly crooked, undeniably his. I'm allowed to learn slowly. Silence returns. The quills rest where they began, pale feathers. Still, nibs clean. The ink does not spread or glow. The words do not move again. They simply remain. Hermione exhales slowly, her shoulders lowering as though she has set something down. This isn't rewriting, she whispers. It's listening. Harry nods. He feels lighter, not excused, not absolved, but understood. The quill has not erased his mistake. It has reframed it. Ron leans back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Best detentions I've ever had, he murmurs. Minutes pass, or perhaps only moments. Time feels unimportant here. Finally, Professor McGonagall closes her book. She approaches their desks with measured steps, her expression composed but thoughtful. She looks at each parchment in turn, her gaze lingering not on the words written earlier, but on the new lines, the ones shaped by quiet magic. Very good, she says simply. Osus, not ask questions. She does not comment further. She merely nods once, satisfied, and gestures toward the door. You may go, she adds, and leave the quills. Harry sets his quill down carefully, as though thanking it without words. Hermione does the same, smoothing her parchment once before standing. Ron hesitates, then gently places his quill alongside the others. They leave the classroom quietly. Behind them, the lantern continues to glow. The desks remain in order, and on one desk, among ordinary quills, rests a pale feathered one, silent again, its work done for now. But the words it has written remain, not as punishment, as understanding, and as the door closes softly behind them, Hogwarts holds the classroom in its calm embrace, ready to offer the same quiet lesson again, whenever a student needs not correction, but compassion. The corridors outside the classroom welcome them with a hushed stillness, as though the castle has been expecting their quiet exit. Harry, Hermione, and Ron walk side by side, their footsteps soft against the stone floor. None of them speak at first. The words written by the quill linger gently in their thoughts, not demanding attention, simply present, like a warm memory. The castle feels different now, not changed in shape or sound, but in intention. The lanterns seem kinder in their glow. The staircases do not shift beneath their feet. Even the portraits they pass appear calmer, some figures resting with eyes closed, others gazing out with mild, knowing expressions. Ron breaks the silence with a low murmur. Do you reckon it does that often? Hermione considers this, her fingers brushing lightly against the edge of her sleeve. I don't think it does it often, she says. I think it does it when needed. Harry nods. The thought settles easily. Hogwarts has always been like that, responding not to schedules, but to moments. As they reach the junction near the library corridor, Harry slows. There is a subtle pull here, faint but unmistakable, not an urgency, more like a suggestion. The air feels slightly warmer, the quiet a touch deeper. Hermione feels it too. She stops, tilting her head slightly, listening with more than her ears. "The quill," she whispers. "It's not finished." They turn back, not toward the classroom, but toward the long corridor that runs parallel to it. This passage is rarely used at night. The lamps here are spaced farther apart, their light pooling softly on the floor, leaving gentle stretches of shadow in between. As they walk, Harry becomes aware of a new sound. Not footsteps, not voices, it is the faintest whisper of parchment moving, like pages turning somewhere far away. The sound leads them to a small side room they have passed many times without noticing. Tonight, the door stands slightly ajar, warm, light spilling out into the corridor. There is no sign marking the room, no lock, no warning. Ron swallows softly. That room's never open. They step inside. The space is smaller than a classroom, lined with shelves instead of desks. On the shelves rest stacks of parchment, some neatly bound, others loosely tied with twine. The air carries the familiar scent of ink and paper, mixed with something older and calmer, like dust warmed by sunlight. Hermione's breath catches. These are detention notes. Harry moves closer. He can feel it now clearly, the same quant magic that guided the quill. It hums gently here, not loudly enough to be called power, but steadily enough to be felt. On the nearest shelf, a bundle of parchment is labeled in careful handwriting, unfinished lines. Another reads, "Written, but not understood." Ron frowns, but without fear. They don't feel bad. No, Hermione agrees. They feel paused. As Harry steps deeper into the room, he notices a familiar pale feather resting on a small writing desk at the center. The quill. It lies still, just as before, but the warmth returns the moment he draws near. The lantern above the desk glows a fraction brighter, as though acknowledging him. Harry does not pick up the quill. Instead, the quill moves on its own. Slowly, deliberately, it lifts from the desk and writes across a fresh piece of parchment. The words form calmly, each letter shaped with care. Detention notes are not meant to end a mistake. The quill pauses, then continues. They are meant to hold space for understanding. Hermione feels something settle in her chest, a gentle release. "So this is where they go," she whispers. "The thoughts students write because they're told to, but don't fully mean yet." Ron nods slowly. Or the ones they mean, but don't know how to finish. The second twist unfolds not as surprise, but as clarity. This room is not hidden for secrecy. It is hidden for gentleness. Every parchment here carries a moment when a student was asked to reflect, but needed time instead. The quill does not change their words. It waits with them. It listens until the right meaning emerges. Harry understands now why the quill rewrote their lines. It wasn't correcting them. It was completing a conversation they hadn't yet learned how to have with themselves. The quill finishes its sentence and wets once more. Professor McGonagall's voice drifts softly from the doorway. Very few ever find this room. They turn, unsurprised to see her standing there, Her expression is calm, thoughtful, almost fond. Hogwarts keeps many records, she continues quietly. Not all of them are meant for grading. Hermione smiles gently. So detention isn't really about punishment. McGonagall inclines her head. Not when the castle believes a student needs reflection more than consequence. She steps aside, allowing them a final look around. Harry's eyes trace the shelves once more. He feels no urge to read the parchments. Their presence alone is enough. They represent patience, not curiosity. Ron lets out a slow breath. Wish I'd known about this earlier. McGonagall's eyes soften. You know now. That is sufficient. The lantern dims slightly, signaling closure rather than dismissal. They leave the room together, the door closing gently behind them. As they step back into the corridor, Harry glances once more at the space where the room stood. The wall is blank again, unremarkable, as though it has never been there at all. They walk on in silence, the second layer of the mystery settling peacefully into place. The Quill's magic does not follow them, but its understanding does. Tonight, Hogwarts has offered them more than a lesson. It has shown them where unfinished thoughts are allowed to rest, and that knowledge, carried quietly within, feels like a gift meant to last far, beyond detention. The corridor feels longer on the way back, not because it stretches, but because time has softened around them. Harry, Hermione, and Ron walk without hurry, the quiet of the castle moving alongside them like a patient companion. The discovery of the hidden room does not press for explanation. It settles gently, like a thought placed carefully on a shelf. Lantern light pools at their feet, warm and steady. With each step, the sense of suspension deepens. Not suspense in the sharp sense, but a calm anticipation, as though Hogwarts is inviting them to notice the spaces between moments. Ron clears his throat softly. Feels like the castle's watching us walk, he says. Not uneasy, just curious. Hermione smiles. I think it always does. We just don't always notice. Harry listens to the hush beneath their voices. He senses the Quill's influence, not as a pull, but as a lingering openness, an awareness that the castle is still offering something, even if it hasn't said what. The suspense lies in the gentleness of it. Nothing is demanded, yet something is unfolding. They pass a window overlooking the grounds. The black lake lies smooth and dark, reflecting a moon that looks close enough to touch. A ripple spreads near the shore and then fades, leaving the water calm again. Harry feels the echo of that motion within himself. Movement followed by rest. As they continue, they notice small, ordinary things behaving with unusual care. A door closes without sound as they approach. A portrait shifts slightly to make room. A stair remains still, choosing not to change. It's as if Hogwarts is practicing restraint, mirroring the lesson of the Quill. Hermione pauses near an alcove, running her fingers along the stone. I think the suspense isn't about what happens next, she says quietly. It's about what could happen, and choosing not to rush it. Ron nods. Like when you're about to say something, and then decide to wait, Harry feels that choice resonate. He realizes that the magic they've encountered is not confined to a room or an object. It's a way of moving through the night, attentive, patient, allowing meaning to arrive in its own time. They reach the edge of the library corridor, where shadows gather more deeply between shelves. The library is closed, yet it hums softly, as though the books themselves are resting. Harry imagines the countless notes scribbled in margins, thoughts to half formed and then left behind. The Quill's quiet work seems to echo here. Ron stops, peering into the dimness. You ever notice how some places feel louder when they're quiet? Hermione chuckles softly. That's because we're listening differently. The suspense deepens, not by adding mystery, but by refining attention. Harry senses a question hovering, gentle and unresolved. What do you do with understanding once you have it? The castle doesn't answer. It waits. They move on toward the great hall, doors, now closed and dark. The long tables inside are only silhouettes, candles extinguished, the room holding the memory of voices and warmth. Harry feels a familiar tug, the urge to replay the night, to explain it to himself. He lets the urge pass. The lesson of the Quill suggests that not every insight needs immediate framing. A draft stirs, carrying the faint scent of ink and parchment. Hermione inhales and exhales slowly, grounding herself. I think the Quill's still listening, she says. Not to us, but to the choices we make. Ron scratches his chin. So the test isn't writing something clever. No, Hermione replies gently. It's choosing when to stop praying. They continue toward Gryffindor Tower. The path feels welcoming, familiar. Along the way, Harry notices students' rooms dim and quiet, doors closed with care. The castle seems to cradle the night, ensuring it remains unbroken. As they climb the stairs, Harry senses a soft tightening of the suspense, not tension, but completion nearing. The night has offered layers. The Quill, the hidden room, the understanding. What remains is integration, the quiet act of carrying it forward. They reach the common room. The fire burns low, embers glowing like patient stars. A few students doze in armchairs, books resting against chests. No one looks up as they enter. The room receives them without comment. Ron sinks into a chair with a sigh. I'm exhausted, he says contentedly, not in a bad way. Hermione places her bag down carefully. She doesn't remove the parchment from earlier. She leaves it where it is. I think the suspense ends when we choose rest, she says. Harry nods. He feels the watcher, not as a presence hovering, but as a settled calm, approve. The castle doesn't need them to return to the hidden room. It trusts them to live the lesson. The fire pops softly, sending a spark upward that fades before reaching the chimney. Harry watches it with quiet satisfaction. The night is closing itself gently, like a book marked at the right page. They sit together for a few minutes more, not speaking. The suspense resolves not with revelation, but with acceptance. Nothing else needs to happen tonight. When they finally rise to head to their dormitories, the stairs do not creak. The portraits do not stir. Hogwarts remains attentive, respectful of the choice to rest. As Harry lies down, the last thought that drifts through his mind is simple and reassuring. Understanding doesn't rush. It arrives when you're ready to hold it. Sleep follows easily, carrying the calm forward. The quill rests somewhere nearby, silent and satisfied. The hidden room remains hidden, and the castle, having offered its gentle suspense, returns fully to quiet, content with the knowledge that the lesson has been received and that the night has done exactly what it needed to do. Morning arrives at Hogwarts in the kindest possible way. Light slips through tall windows without announcing itself, resting gently on stone floors and wooden banisters. The castle wakes slowly, as though careful not to disturb the calm it worked so patiently to create the night before. Harry opens his eyes, feeling rested, not energized, not alert, but settled, the sort of rest that feels complete. Around him, the dormitory breathes softly. Curtains sway faintly. Somewhere below, a stair creaks once and then grows still again. As Harry dresses, he notices how quiet his thoughts are. There is no replaying of last night's events, no urge to analyze the quill or the hidden room. The memory sits peacefully within him, like a book returned to its shelf. Downstairs, Hermione is already awake, seated near the common room window with a mug warming her hands. She isn't reading, she's watching the light move across the grounds, her expression thoughtful but content. Ron appears moments later, hair untidy, posture relaxed. "I slept like I hadn't got a detention hanging over me," he says, stretching, which is new. Hermione smiles. Maybe that was the point. They decide to walk before breakfast, not because they need fresh air, but because the castle feels inviting in the early hours. The corridors welcome them with quiet familiarity. Portraits blink awake lazily. A suit of armor shifts its stance, then settles again. As they move, Harry becomes aware of the choices they're making. Not large ones, not dramatic turns, but small decisions that shape the morning. They choose not to rush. They choose not to speak over the quiet. They choose not to revisit the hidden room. Instead, they wander toward the greenhouses, where glass panes catch the sun and scatter it into soft patterns. Professor Sprout tends her plants, humming gently, her movements unhurried. She nods to them as they pass, no questions asked. Hermione pauses, fingers brushing the edge of her sleeve. "I think the quill teaches you how to notice when something is enough," she says. Ron tilts his head. "Enough writing, enough thinking," Hermione replies. "Enough explaining." Harry feels that resonate. He has spent so much of his life responding, answering questions, reacting to expectations. The quill's magic offered something different, permission to pause without consequence. They continue across the grounds, stopping near the lake. The surface is calm, reflecting sky and clouds as if undecided which to keep. Ron tosses a pebble lightly, creating a ripple that spreads and fades. "I could have gone back last night," Ron admits. "Tried to see the room again." Harry nods. "Me too. But we didn't," Ron says, and that feels right. The choice not to return feels as meaningful as the discovery itself. Hogwarts didn't hide the room to tempt them. It hid it to protect the stillness it held. As they head toward breakfast, They pass other students, some laughing softly, others walking alone. Harry notices the quiet moments, a student pausing before speaking, another folding a piece of parchment and tucking it away instead of sending it. The lesson is spreading, not magically, not visibly, but through awareness. At the Great Hall, breakfast unfolds gently. Plates fill and empty. Owls glide overhead, delivering letters with unhurried grace. Harry watches one owl linger before dropping its letter, as if checking whether now is the right moment. Hermione eats slowly, savoring her tea. Ron talks about Quidditch practice, but without his usual urgency. There is time for everything today. Later, Hermione chooses the library, not to study, but to sit among the shelves. She opens a book, reads a page, then allows herself to close it again when her attention drifts. The choice feels intentional, not lazy. Ron takes a nap by the fire, unbothered by the idea of being seen resting. Harry writes a short note, then folds it and places it in his bag instead of sending it. He may send it later, or not at all. Each choice is small, each one matters. By afternoon, clouds drift lazily across the sky. Harry walks the corridors alone for a while, letting the castle guide him. He passes the classroom from the night before. The door is closed now, unremarkable. He feels no urge to open it. The Quill does not call to him, and that, too, feels right. As evening approaches, Hermione and Ron rejoin him. Lanterns are being lit, their glow warm and steady. Hogwarts settles into night once more, but this time without mystery, only comfort. They pause briefly where the hidden room once appeared. The wall is smooth, unchanged. Hermione rests her palm against the stone for a moment, then withdraws it. It doesn't need us anymore, she says. Ron grins. Reckon it never did. They head back to the common room, choosing familiarity over curiosity. The fire greets them. Chairs wait. The day closes itself gently. Harry sits and lets the warmth reach him. The Quill's lesson feels fully integrated now, not as a memory of magic, but as a way of being. He doesn't need to search for understanding tonight. He has already chosen it. And as Hogwarts breathes around them, steady, patient, kind, the castle seems satisfied. The exploration is complete, not because every path was taken, but because the right ones were left untouched. Sometimes, the most meaningful choice is knowing when to stop exploring and to simply rest within what has already been found. The insight comes quietly, the way understanding often does at Hogwarts, without a bell, without a spectacle, without asking to be noticed. It arrives that evening as the castle settles once more into its familiar hush. Lanterns glow along the corridors, the great hall empties, and the sounds of the day fade into the gentle murmur of night. Harry sits by the common room fire, watching the embers pulse softly, each glow followed by a patient dimming. The rhythm feels familiar now, comforting. Hermione sits nearby, a book open on her lap, though she hasn't turned the page in some time. Ron occupies an armchair across from them, half listening to the fire, half lost in thought. None of them speak, They don't need to. The quill has not returned. And for the first time, Harry understands why. The revelation is not about the quill itself, not about its enchantment, its history, or how it came to exist. Those details feel strangely unimportant now. What matters is what the quill did not do. It did not punish. It did not correct. It did not demand perfection. Instead, it listened. Harry leans back in his chair, the thoughts settling gently into place. The quill did not rewrite detention notes because the original words were wrong. It rewrote them because the students writing them were still becoming the people who could fully understand those words. The quill was never meant to judge effort. It was meant to respect timing. Hermione speaks softly, as if responding to the same thought. I don't think it changes the writing for everyone, she says, only when the words are ahead of the person writing them. Ron nods slowly, like when you're told to explain what you learned before you've had time to actually learn it. Harry feels the truth of that settle warmly in his chest. So much of school, so much of life, is about being asked to show understanding before it has finished forming. The quill recognizes that gap. It doesn't rush to fill it. It holds it open. The insight deepens. Detention at Hogwarts is not meant to shrink a student down to their mistake. It is meant to create a pause, a space where reflection is possible. The quill's magic honors that pause. It does not erase the mistake. It simply reframes it as part of a longer process. Harry thinks of the hidden room again, the shelves of unfinished lines, the parchments waiting without judgment. Those notes were not failures. They were in-progress thoughts, given a place to rest until their writers were ready to return to them. Hermione closes her book gently. It's why the room stays hidden, she says. If everyone knew about it, they'd try to use it, rush it, control it. Ron smiles faintly. And it doesn't work that way. No, Hermione agrees. It waits. Harry watches the fire brighten and dim again. He realizes that the quill's magic is not rare because it is powerful, but because it is patient, and patience in a castle full of eager minds and restless magic is one of the rarest things of all. The insight settles fully now, not as a conclusion, but as a quiet certainty. The quill rewrites detention notes, because detention is not the end of learning, it is the middle. The words written in that classroom were never meant to be final statements, they were starting points. The quill simply acknowledged what the students themselves had not yet learned how to say. Hermione looks at Harry, her eyes thoughtful but calm. I think, she says slowly, that the quill doesn't teach lessons. It teaches permission. Permission for what? Ron asks. For not being finished, she replies. Harry feels something loosen within him at those words. He has spent so much of his life feeling as though he must always be ready, ready to respond, ready to act, ready to understand. The quill offered something different, the permission to pause without consequence. The castle seems to respond subtly. The fire settles lower. The common room grows quieter, students drifting towards sleep without hurry. Hogwarts feels pleased, not triumphant, but content. There is no need to return to the classroom. No need to see the quill again. The insight does not require confirmation. Harry understands now that the magic of that night was never meant to be repeated. It was meant to be carried, not as a story to tell, but as a way of moving through the world, with patience, with kindness, with trust in one's own timing. Ron stretches and stands, yawning. "I think," he says simply, "that might be the nicest thing detention's ever done to me." Hermione smiles, warm and genuine. "Me too." Harry rises with them, feeling steady and at ease. The revelation does not leave him energized or excited. It leaves him calm, grounded, whole. As they head toward the dormitory stairs, the castle holds its quiet. No doors creak, no portraits comment. The night accepts the understanding without needing acknowledgement. Somewhere within Hogwarts, the quill rests once more, pale feather still, ink dry. It does not wait to be used again. It waits to be needed. And tonight, its lesson has been fully received, not written on parchment, but settled gently into the hearts of 3 students who finally understand that learning does not end with correction. Sometimes it begins with patience. The castle eases itself into rest, as though satisfied with the night's quiet work. Harry, Hermione, and Ron climb the familiar stairs toward their dormitories, their footsteps soft and unhurried. Nothing follows them, no echo of magic, no lingering pull toward the classroom or the hidden room behind the wall. The absence feels intentional, like a gentle closing of a door that does not need to be locked. In the dormitory, the air is cool and clean, scented faintly with old wood and evening calm. Ron changes quickly and sinks into bed with a contented sigh, sleep finding him without effort. Hermione pauses by the window for a moment, drawing the curtain just enough to let moonlight spill across the floor, then settles into her own bed with a quiet smile. Harry lies back and lets the mattress hold him. His thoughts drift, but they do not tangle. The Quill's lesson has already settled, requiring no further attention. There is no need to remember every detail. The feeling is enough. Sleep arrives gently. Morning follows without hurry. Pale light filters through tall windows, warming stone and fabric alike. The castle wakes slowly, deliberately, as though mindful of preserving the calm earned during the night. Voices return in soft layers, distant laughter, the murmur of conversation, the clink of dishes somewhere below. At breakfast, everything feels familiar and reassuring. Plates fill, teacups steam, owls glide overhead with quiet grace, delivering letters without urgency. Harry notices how some students read their mail immediately, while others tuck envelopes away, choosing to wait. The choice feels natural now, unremarkable, and that is precisely what makes it meaningful. Hermione sips her tea and looks content. Ron talks about the day ahead, classes, Quidditch practice, ordinary things, without any sense of pressure. Harry listens, present and steady, feeling as though the castle has gently recalibrated something within him. Lessons pass calmly, chalk moves across boards. Pages turn. Questions are asked and answered without haste. Even when answers are uncertain, no one seems wishes to fill the silence. Teachers pause longer than usual, Students think before speaking. The Quill's influence does not announce itself, but it lingers in these small mercies. Later, Harry walks alone through the corridors, letting Hogwarts guide him where it will. He passes the classroom from the night before. The door stands closed, ordinary once more. He feels no curiosity, no longing. The room has returned to being just a room, its purpose fulfilled. The hidden room does not appear again, and that feels right. Outside, the grounds stretch peacefully. Beneath a calm sky, the black lake reflects drifting clouds. Harry sits on the grass for a while, doing nothing at all. The world does not ask him to hurry. The castle does not mind. As afternoon softens into evening, lanterns are lit along the corridors, their glow warm and steady. Students gather for dinner, conversations flowing easily. There is laughter, but it is gentle. The day closes itself without drama. Back in the common room, the fire glows low. Hermione reads for a while, then closes her book when her attention drifts. Ron naps openly, unbothered. Harry watches the embers and feels a quiet gratitude, not for magic discovered, but for calm restored. The quill rests somewhere unseen, pale feather still. It does not seek to be found again. It trusts the lesson to live on without it. As night returns, Hogwarts breathes evenly. Corridors dim, portraits settle. The castle resumes its steady watch, content to hold space for learning that does not rush and understanding that arrives when it is ready. Harry climbs the stairs once more, sleep already near. As he lies down, he feels the day close gently around him, like a book marked at the perfect place. Nothing remains unfinished. The lesson has returned to calm, exactly where it belongs. As the night settles fully over Hogwarts, the castle returns to its most comforting rhythm. Corridors dim to a soft glow, lanterns resting in patient circles of light. The stone walls hold warmth from the day, and the echoes of footsteps fade into memory. Somewhere above, stars move slowly across the sky, untroubled by time, watching over towers and turrets that know how to keep quiet. Within these walls, learning continues, but not loudly and not in a hurry. Some lessons arrive through books and lectures. Others arrive through pauses, through moments when nothing is required except attention and kindness toward oneself. Tonight's lesson belongs to the second kind, the sort that settles gently and stays without effort. If you imagine yourself here now, wrapped in the calm of the castle, you might feel your thoughts growing lighter. There is nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to explain. Like the quill that rests unseen, you are allowed to be still. Hogwarts understands this. It understands that reflection takes time, that understanding unfolds at its own pace, and that rest is not an absence of learning, but part of it. The castle keeps watch without judgment, offering space for thoughts to pause and hearts to settle. So let your breathing slow. Let the weight of the day soften and drift away. Whatever remains unfinished can wait. Whatever feels unclear does not need an answer tonight. The night holds those things gently, without asking anything in return. As sleep draws closer, imagine the lanterns dimming one by one, the fire settling into glowing embers, and the quill resting quietly, its work complete for now. Everything is where it should be. The stars continue their slow journey. The castle breathes, and you are safe to rest. Drift gently into sleep, carried by quiet magic, patient understanding, and the comforting knowledge that sometimes the kindest lesson is simply permission to pause. Good night, and may Hogwarts watch over your dreams.